Hello, welcome back. It's week 14 with Peter and Parker. This week we're talking about tracking, because it's actually happening now.
Yep.
We're talking about like building some independence in the dogs and just how you do that via taking them on a bushwalk. And we're talking about some shaping that you've begun doing with them.
Yeah, fun times.
Tell us about your tracking.
So finally, I don't rush them through this, but I'm always itching to get to the next stage where they actually start tracking for more than like 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. So we start off small. They need to work out how to use their nose and indicate, and then eventually we're building up to the duration. But they've gone from like tracking 3, maybe 5 meters or something, to now tracking 50 to 75 meters in a couple of sessions. So that's what happens when they really understand this is what we're doing now, and they have to just keep going until they find that article. So we've started to do that. We've just done a few sessions, and that's to help them settle in on the track, because when you're doing it so short, what happened with these guys is they were like, okay, I just run out a certain distance, I'm going to guess, and then I look for the thing. So I started to do the really long tracks, like a significant jump. So they'd race forward, and then they'd go, oh, well, hang on, where is it? They'd start to sniff the track, and then they would track the rest of the way, rather than have it too short and then I have to go, like, you've like gone beyond the distance of the track, like you've got to come back here, and rather than doing all that, and that helped them settle in.
So that confusion and that kind of messiness at that point is where they're actually turning what's been just an article indication, run out, find the nail somewhere, into tracking, where now they're like, oh, I have to find the path that led me to the article.
Yeah.
So you're sort of like, as we talked about in the Q&A, you've got the article indication down under the command to track, and now they will teach themselves how to find the article rather than just like area searching for it.
Yeah.
They're going to teach themselves find the ground disturbancy that leads to it.
Yeah, exactly. And to not rush the start, trying to control like their arousal level, because they know what they're doing now. They're eager to start. They're like, I'm looking for the thing. So they're like, yeah, let me go. And they shoot off. And it's like, hey man, like you've missed the track, don't rush. So it's giving them a chance to, do all of what you said, and then settle into the track over the course of, that 50 or 70 meters or what have you. And then what we'll do now is we might do a few of those longer tracks still, but like simultaneously we'll also be working on bringing them up on the hard surface tracking, so they can indicate and everything, and now I've got to do what I did on the grass onto the hard surface, and then on the grass I'll bring the track to a shorter distance and start to introduce multiple articles. But each one of those, like the long tracks, the multiple articles on short tracks, and then short tracks on hard surface, and bringing that up, they're all in different sessions.
Right.
So they're all getting worked on. I could say that I'm going to work on all of those for the next 2 weeks, but they're all going to be separate sessions, So that's just something important to note when people might see or hear me talk about, like, I'm working on this and I'm working on this. It's separated, because they're each a different criteria. Later, they all get brought together. Same as when we introduce, making a turn. That's its own session, and I can another day continue other tracking that's longer and what have you. But when I teach them the turns and stuff, that's just its own thing. Same with how we cross surfaces. We'll go back to a shorter track and go, hey, you crossed the surface. That's its own session. When that's good, we can bring it into everything else. So.
And those 3 criteria of longer tracks, and at the moment what you said you're doing about 80 meters or something like that?
Yeah, like so about 3/4 of the length of a soccer field.
Okay, so longer tracks, more articles. So the longer track allows them to just settle in and
build on duration.
Yeah.
Also helps. So I do it just in general public areas. So when there's distractions around, it gives them a chance to go, oh, I got distracted. Shit, I lost the track. Oh,
come back.
She's not going to help me. Let me find this track again. So it gives them some repetitions of, re-finding the track if they lose it. But that's then going to actually help them realize, hey man, nothing's really happening over there. Don't engage with anything, and they don't end up like looking up as much. They'll look up occasionally, like we said. That's not a bad thing for what we want. But they won't actually try to peel off and go, oh, there's people. What were they doing? They'll go, hey, yeah, I don't need to worry about that, and they'll keep going.
Okay.
So then helps with the reps of all that.
So the risk when you're doing these longer tracks, especially with the reinforcer at the end, because you want them to settle into the track, is that they then speed up and just start sort of blowing over what will be turns and stuff like that, because they're like, I want to get to the end of this. I vaguely am aware that I'm on track, but are not like really attentive to it.
And then also when you understand something, like speed will naturally come with that unless you put a bit of a restriction on it. You know?
So that restriction is in separate, because you want the builder duration. In separate sessions you do, of course, they have no idea which session it is, right?
Yeah.
So they don't, the expectation is you do one long track, 80 meters, whatever. The next time they're like, okay, well, that's where my reinforcer was in 80 meters. I'm going to just start trying to get to the end of the track. But boom, here's an article 4 meters in, and then here's another article in another 5 meters, and then maybe you go 15 meters and there's an article, so that they're like, oh, there is no point in going fast. I get reinforced at each article and I have to find each article. So you're slowing them down, keeping them concentrated, as well as continuing to explain that there's value in telling us about these articles. You have to tell us about those. Other than the tracking, you've been building a fair amount of independence with them through taking them on these walks where you have them like separate and away from you. Talk us through that a little bit.
So I take them out and we walk. That's it, right? So the reason I use a bush track is because there's typically a pretty clear designated track. There's bush either side or what have you, or long grass, whatever it may be. And it's clear that I'm walking from A to B. You're coming with me if you like it or not, you know, but they're off leash. Now, I know there's going to be a point where if they stop to sniff something and I keep walking, they're eventually going to go, oh, I'm coming, no worries, all right? And if they don't, I'll be like, hey, this way, and they'll change direction and they'll come with me. So there's these lifestyle cues that I use. I also use my no reward marker, because the goal is that each one of the dogs wanders along with me, and when something interests them, they go and investigate it, but they're not playing with the other one. So when the other one finds something else that they're interested, they investigate it, and they're doing their own thing. Now, sometimes like one might be interested in something here, the other might go, oh, what you looking at? Like, that's fine, but what I don't want is for them to be playing with each other and thinking this is about us doing a thing together, or doing a thing with me, like you've got to interact with me, right? There's 3 of us. We each have our own interests, and we're not to hassle the other one. We're not playing with any of the others, you know. So
you interrupt any play between them that happens, and they've just got to be moving around, moving with you. They can sniff stuff, they can do whatever they want, but they're not allowed to like be all over you, and they're not allowed to be all over each other. And you'll intervene whenever that happens.
Yeah, exactly. So at some point, if one of them is really trying to bring on the play with the other, and the other's like, hey, we're kind of not doing that, then I'll put that one that's being harassing, I'll put that one on leash and walk with it on leash for a little while, so it's still free, but to the extent of the leash. If they both start to do it, I'll put them both on a leash and go, hey guys, we're walking, you just pull on the leash, but you can't be playing when you do it. And when that happens, they tend to just go, oh, we're driving forward. Like, yes, they're doing it together, but they're no longer playing. They're in their own little... Like they're in their lane, you know. So if they're both a little bit of a problem, we'll go back to that for a little bit, and then I'll separate them.
Having dogs off leash, it's one of the things that it seems so obvious that you need to do it as a puppy, but especially with a lot of the pet dog clients that we've dealt with, it's a huge issue. If people don't have a place where they can do this kind of thing, right? Like go on just a hike with your dog and in a place where it's safe to have the dog off leash, or give it the illusion of freedom, like where it feels like it could do anything. If you don't do that in a developing dog, by the time you have your 2-year-old dog and you unclip it, it's fucking out of there, man. Like it's never experienced that level of freedom. And I've had so many pet dog clients that have never taken their dog off leash because they miss that puppy stage where you can, I guess, sort of capitalize on the separation anxiety of a puppy not wanting to be alone. And so you can just move around with it and it'll just vaguely follow you and be kind of near you and experience life and be like, yeah, this is it. If you never give it that and you have it on leash everywhere and you build a bunch of barrier frustration to that leash and the dog is always thinking there's a magical world out there I've never seen, when you unclip that dog at 2 years old or you accidentally drop that leash or whatever, that dog is fucking out of here, man. And I reckon the majority of the missing pet dogs that you see, like people who lose their dog, it's those kind of dogs that have never had the freedom, and so when they get it, and now they're 2 years old or whatever, and they're not so concerned about separation, they just run. They're like, there's no reason I should stop. I'm out of here. And then they get so far that they're like, oh, how did I even get here? And so this week also you did some shaping with some interesting examples of the personality types and the dogs and how that affects shaping.
Yes. I've done like 5 sessions on them going to the marker board, and that's to, like, the focus of that wasn't to actually teach them the marker board behavior. It's the introduction of shaping, right? So it doesn't really matter how long that takes.
Kind of making them a bit operant.
Yeah, exactly, right? So now that they did 5 sessions of that, they both understand, like, they're meant to stand on it, and there's way more to do with that, but right now it's just going to go on hold. Now that they understand that, I'm going to start introducing new random behaviors that are just not important for anything, not like sit downs and stands, more like go around a cone, stand on a skateboard, those sort of just random things, just to get them more operant and switching their brains on, and them understanding when I say go to work that means you need to start shaping.
There's a problem that can be solved.
Exactly. So the very next thing after that marker board was putting a cone out, and I stopped in the most random spot because it was in the afternoon. It was hot. It was 35 degrees yesterday, and I didn't want to go out and have them doing too much and overheating or things like that, but they needed to do something. But I was looking for a shady spot to A, film, but B, to work them so they're not in the sun. I pulled up like in this little like alleyway sort of reserve thing, and I just did it on a footpath, and like, you know, just a random thing. And I was like, okay, here's the cone. I'm, a couple meters away. And they see me put it down, and they're like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm like, yeah, I sort of play on that. I'm like, yeah, you want to do that thing? Cool, I'm going to pull you over here. And then I go like, go to work, let go of the retractable lock, and they go. Now, the first rep when they're learning something new is as soon as they engage with that thing, I don't care how they engage with it, but I'll click straight away. And so they go, that's the thing, right? And until they hear that, they're still searching for what it is. So first rep, I think it was Parker. It was Parker, and I think it was the first rep, just did that. Second rep, he was like, okay, it's this thing. He ran back. He sort of was like, okay, what do I do with it? Ran around behind. I clicked. He came back the same side, back to me. And I think it was the third rep. He went out, and he was like, so what do I do with this? And he walked to the other side, and I was like, click. And I was like, you already did it. Oh my God, now what do I do? Like, am I gonna teach you to walk around it 5 times or something? Like, and I was trying to like quickly go through the Rolodex of like, okay, what criteria can I go through to make this beneficial for you? Because he did it quicker than what I had planned. I had a plan for, doing it quickly, but not that quickly, right? And then Peter came out, and he still doesn't know really what the heck he's doing. He stood there going like, oh, maybe I'll go over to the grass over there. I was like, no, man, you're shaping. Like, you'll do this thing. And like, he was like, is it this thing? Like, and he was just a bit more sluggish, that like maybe he didn't need work as much as Parker did at that time, but Parker's always looking like, yeah, what's the next thing? But Peter likes to settle in on things. But yeah, it was just, the difference was night and day in them.
It's pretty interesting. I think that's really indicative of their personalities and everything that we've seen in them to this point, in that Parker's always like, what's next? And so he's going to love shaping, and he'll be a dog that, it'll be interesting because he'll be a dog that you'll have probably a hard time making stable in behaviors. He'll want like, what's the next behavior? What's the other thing? And so...
and anticipating like, like if he's in a sit, he'll be like, do you want a down now? I'll give you a down.
Yeah.
Like it's not even just breaking it to come back for a reward or anything. He just wants to do another thing.
Yeah. And Peter the opposite. Like he's like, I'm doing the thing, and he gets like very locked up. And
but it's interesting because like Peter, he's the one that I did the shaping video on, that we showed the 5 sessions, and he was really slow in the first 2, but then 3, 4, and 5, like really quick progressions, and he worked it out. So maybe he's slower to start, but it's like he's not frantic about it. He's quite like methodical. I feel like he's quite methodical in what he's trying to work out, and then he wants to settle in on it, So whereas Parker's a little bit more, not that he's frantic, but a bit more like, yeah, let's do this. I'm excited.
Yeah, he enjoys what's next.
Yeah.
Where like he doesn't have a lot of love for what's happening now. He's excited about what could come, and Peter's like, no, I like what I'm doing right now. And that'll be fun to play with as they grow up, and it'll affect the way that you train them and when you start teaching real obedience, it'll affect the way that you do that.
I'm already starting to think that they're going to have different methods of how I teach their obedience. Like say healing, for example, like, one might end up luring, the other might end up more guidance with, leash pressure, prong pressure, things like that.
Yeah.
So I haven't decided, but I'm feeling there's going to be a little bit of a difference, and I'm starting to recognize the ways that they're learning.
Yeah.
And that way, like, I can start to make a decision before I start teaching those behaviors based on how they're showing that they're learning now. So.
Yeah. All right, well, that's it for week 14 with Peter and Parker. As always, do all the bullshit that helps us get this message to other people. Like it, leave a comment, watch it twice, whatever. Is it me this time? Yeah, I'm on this side. Over me is the profiles. You can click on mine if you want to subscribe. Go and see what else is available on the channel, as well as Jazz's. Jazz is putting out heaps of other cool videos about the boys with more detailed instruction of what she's doing. And ultimately, we're going to be building to having a space between the sessions, puppy raising tutorial on the stuff like we've just talked about now, and the things that people maybe don't think of doing while they're not in the training session with puppies. My online course is available now. You can jump onto my website, seriousdogbusiness.com, and you hit the courses tab there. You can see my course and a lot of the stuff that when we talk about the way that we're training, some of the terminology, all that kind of stuff, you can learn all that and have a better understanding of what you're seeing us do here. Videos over Jazz. That's it. Ciao.